Hi everyone, today is Saturday, May 30th, 2020. Carol Ann speaks, the state of our world. How is the state of our world? Well, we still have the coronavirus. We still need to test everybody, trace their contacts. Any contact who tests positive for the virus, test their contacts. Get everyone who tests positive quarantined and isolated and get them treated and get them well. That's the goal. Still short of personal protective equipment, still short of ventilators and respirators, and still short of tests. There are a lot of tests out there, but we don't really know which one is the best. We still need national coordination from the federal government, someone in charge of getting personal protective equipment for everyone, and also making sure we have the right tests. Tests to see if someone has the virus. Also tests to see if someone had the virus as antibodies that may be used to help someone who currently has the virus. So a lot of different things going on, but no official anything. No one in charge. No one's home in Washington. They're not home for this. They're not home for us. So we know that. We still have vulnerable populations like people living in retirement homes, assisted living homes, veterans homes, nursing homes, migrant workers, people in detention. Trump is still separating families at the border. He's separating children from their parents at the border, and they're put in detention. What happened to the idea of the U.S. Being a place where people who are oppressed can seek asylum? You know, Statue of Liberty says, send me your poor, your wretched, send me people who need some help. But evidently in the age of Trump, that doesn't mean anything. So, we have all these situations. We have essential workers, we're told they have to go back to work, while people who are telling them they have to go back to work, they're working in their home office, and they're not exposing themselves, and they are telling these people they have to go back to work. So if you work in the meatpacking industry, are owners of that company that's telling people to go back to work, are they out there working, or are they hiding in their homes in a nice room just watching the news? Now, grocery store workers are working, as are police and firefighters, and other first responders, EMTs, paramedics, all kinds of health officials, nurses, doctors, everybody, as therapists, everybody is out there working, risking their lives so that others who tell them they have to go back to work don't seem to do anything except complain. So, we still have protests against the lockdown in various cities, putting people in danger, and we also have cities all over the country opening up in some way, and some people want to open up faster, and places that have opened up have now had to lock down again because there's been a spike in cases and a spike in deaths from the virus. So what is the perfect answer? We need a national solution, which we don't have, because Trump and his people don't want a national solution. They just want to let everything be chaotic. Now, some other things happening is the Michael Flynn was an security advisor for President Trump, and he was accused of talking to Russian officials about sanctions after the 2016 election, and he said he didn't, but he did. He confessed, and then he was put in jail. Well, he wasn't put in jail yet, but jail was coming, and he was helpful to the FBI, etc., etc. And now we know that Flynn was given a get-out-of-jail-free card. Why? Because Fox News, which is basically the mouthpiece for Trump, recently criticized a federal agent who was had a critical role in the investigation of Flynn, and so the Fox News was instrumental in getting this man fired. So he was told to resign, and he did. 38 years in service, and that's his review. That's his final assignment to leave. And the FBI, this is the FBI counsel who resigned, and he was working very hard, doing the right thing, but Fox News host Lou Dobbs said it's shocking. These are new reports that the FBI General Counsel was acting in coordination with FBI Director Christopher Wray to block the release of evidence that would have cleared General Flynn. Well, that's not true. But in any case, this gentleman with 38 years service with the federal government is no longer working there. And the desire to have him resign came from Attorney General William Barr's Justice Department, which oversees the FBI. So it's like Fox News is getting in the act here. Very strange. Now, what else happened there? That's unfortunate. But we know that more will come out. Now, the latest news, it's all over the news, all over the country, is the murder of a man in Minnesota the other day at the hands of the police in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. And there have been protests all over the country about this. Ties in with the Black Lives Matter movement. George Floyd is the name of this person who was murdered. He actually comes from Texas, Houston, Texas, and he was an activist for peace. Now, he is no longer with us, but people are protesting all over the country in peaceful and not so peaceful ways, and police all over the country are cracking down on the protesters in not so nice ways. So there's curfews, there's everything. Now, we have a Justice Department that seems to be on the side of not Mr. Floyd, not the protesters, but we're not sure who they're on the side of. But Trump made a statement saying the military is ready and willing and able to deploy to Minneapolis amid the protests. Sounds like he wants to see a military response to this, more people getting hurt and getting killed. So what's that all about? Trump doesn't like protests. There are protests that are going on in Washington, D.C., right at the door of the White House. People want to hold him accountable for his actions, his words, his tweets. People think he's racist, and he's kind of encouraging people to be violent. When he was in office for not too long, Charlottesville, Virginia, had a protest by white supremacists, and then there was a counter-protest by another group that didn't want the white supremacists there. And a young woman who was one of the protesting against the white supremacists, she ended up being killed by someone hitting her with their car. And Trump made a statement that there are good people on both sides. Well, the white supremacists were not representative of good people, but Trump thinks they were. A while ago in New York, there was a case of a woman in Central Park being attacked and assaulted by someone, and without any evidence, Trump said it was a bunch of black guys. Well, turned out not to be true. There's a group became known as the Central Park Five. They basically rounded up these people and accused them of assaulting this woman with no evidence. Later it came out that someone else assaulted the woman, not one of these black guys, but a white guy. But Trump continues to rail against the Central Park Five. He even took out full-page ads in New York newspapers against them, said they should be prosecuted, they should get the death penalty. Well, that's not a very good way to go, but that's the way he thinks. And now he wants the military to step in because of the protests against the murder by the hands of the police of Mr. George Floyd. So what's that all about? I think this is going on for a while. African Americans have been treated very terribly in this country, and there's always been a lot of racism, what they call Jim Crow laws that discriminate against African American people. And so it's a big problem. We have areas of every city that are like ghettos, and people who live in the ghettos don't get equal rights, equal opportunities, equal justice. And I think the murder of Mr. Floyd pushed people over the edge, time to protest, as have similar actions in the past of other people who were innocent. Mr. Floyd did not do anything wrong, but he was arrested, and they claim police say he resisted arrest. He didn't, and at the hands of the police, he died. And the protesters have been protesting continuously. Now, I approve of protesting if there's something to protest about. But all right, now, I guess you've heard that Trump wants to send in the military, the U.S. military, to help the protests going on as a result of the murder of Mr. George Floyd. That is not right. The Constitution does not allow the U.S. military to come in and to a state or territory to be in charge. A governor may need some help and request help, but the military, U.S. military, does not belong there. It's up to the states to solve their problems with their National Guard, with their police. So, but Trump seems to think that the protesters need to be taught a lesson, and the military should come in and be really tough on them, because he thinks these protesters are thugs. So that's not going over very well. Now, and while all this is happening, the virus is still running around the country, infecting people and killing people. So is Trump making these statements to change the attention from him and his treatment of the coronavirus? Or is he just trying to be helpful in his way to various state officials? I don't know. All right, now I think maybe that's enough business for today. Maybe it's time for a little song. All right, I'm going to sing part of a song that I wrote. It's called Jenny. It's about my great aunt Jenny, who came here from Hungary with her children to start a new life. All right, here we go. Jenny, 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 she crossed the sea from Hungary with her family. Jenny was a widow with 5 children when she decided to go to America. Jenny and her family settled in New Jersey. The kids went to school and later to work. to save their money. When they had enough, they sent for Frances, Jenny's sister, who was still in Hungary. Frances, the widow, had 4 young children of her own when she set out to join Jenny in America. Jenny, 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 she crossed the sea from Hungary with her family. They traveled overland from Hungary to a seaport, and then they got to the ship. They had to they traveled across. They left Hungary. They traveled across the country. Traveled from Hungary to a seaport, where they traveled in the lowest class. And then they got to America. They were processed at Ellis Island as immigrants. And that's the story, beginning of the story, My Great Aunt Jenny. Okay, it's time for us to say goodnight. So I'd like to say goodnight. Carolyn Speaks, the State of Her World, Saturday, May 30th, 2020. Thank you. Be safe. Be kind. Thank you.